Hey folks, Jackdaw here. I am channeling my inner Major Tom today because the Expanse Osiris Reborn has moved beyond the pitch of being the next quote Mass Effect and into something that we can actually analyse. Details that reveal what this game is rather than what it claims it wants to be. You see, Polygon has spent an entire hour behind closed doors and come back with the specifics, how the opening mission plays, how your choices land, how your twin fits into the story, you heard that right, and how the combat actually behaves. We've also had our first in-universe tour of iconic locations like Ganymede, Ceres and Eros, complete with a few very deliberate story hints to delve into. And on top of that, Owlcat's latest dev diary features an actual NASA astronaut breaking down EVA fear and how that tension is being turned into moment-to-moment gameplay. So it's time to leave the capsule if you dare, and you are okay with a few light spoilers on the game's opening. Let's jump in. So the first big new chunk of details come from Polygon's closed door Gamescom preview, which is the first time people came back talking about an actual game on its feet. And this is what an hour inside it feels like. Timeline wise, Polygon confirms that Osiris Reborn is slotted right into the first 2 books of The Expanse, or roughly the first 2.5 seasons of the show. At the start of the game, in a way that I can't help but enjoy as an identical twin myself, you have your own twin at your side, your closest partner in Pinkwater security, and both of you are stationed on Eros, the neglected asteroid station in the belt, where Protogen quote research projects have a habit of spiraling into crisis. Protogen, by the way, is the system's terrifying biotech giant. They are experimenting with an extraterrestrial material. Everything goes sideways, and your big opening move is to steal a Protogen shuttle and leg it. That theft is the inciting incident that drags all the trouble back to Pinkwater Station. And so you are not the chosen one, so much as the person who brought the worst possible package back home from shore leave. The preview also nails down what quote custom protagonist means. You choose gender, an origin, Earther, Martian, Belter. You pick a starting preset like Marksman, who leans into sniper rifles, or Officer, who leans into assault rifles. It is not really a class system, just a starting kit that sets the tone for your build. The bigger detail here is your twin, Private J as they're referred to. They mirror whatever you create. Pinkwater Station is your first real hub, and Polygon emphasise how properly lived in it feels. Algae menus in the canteen, NPCs trading gossip about Holden's Eros broadcast. You meet Luciana, a Europa trader who seems to know what everyone wants. And Larry, an exhausted worker using Belter Sign who gives you a quest called a perfect gift and insists you do not open the package for his mum. Now, Polygon writer Samantha Nelson spent an ungodly amount of time worrying whether you are accidentally now a cat smuggler, to which the developers did not reply to this pressing question. Now, if this all sounds way too cheerful and happy for you, well, all of that everyday space station texture is there just to make the first choice hit even harder. A Protogen ship turns up, demands their stolen shuttle back, and the station commander has to decide whether to run or fight. You can promise to find your own way out, or if your persuasion stat is high enough, you can talk him into taking up arms against a corporate kill squad. Polygon tried the heroic speech option, but it went badly. The important detail there is that the game does not throw up a big red warning, this will massacre the station prompt. You make a call that feels principled in the moment, and later you will walk through the aftermath. The escape sequence also gives Polygon their first look at combat. Initially, it is just you and your sibling rather than a full 3-person squad, which makes the whole thing at this point feel a bit more fragile. So they're sneaking through vents, getting spotted by Protogen security, and the screen drops into grayscale to signal low health. And so cover matters, positioning even more so. You do have Zahar, a tech specialist, and one of your early companions talking in your ear from the stolen ship. So even though they are not physically present, party members are still stitched into these moments. The standout moment though is Private J's specialist ability. Your twin can target structural weak points, drop drop ceilings on enemies, or detonate parts of the environment to set people on fire. And of course, other companions fill different roles. A hacker who can trigger an EMP through a nearby terminal. A sniper who can pin enemies down from afar. Polygon call out how quickly the walls get pockmarked with bullets, which suggests just how hard the art team are leaning into visible damage rather than, you know, a typical clean, reset-ready arena. Eventually, the station becomes so overrun that Zahar tells you to do the most Expanse thing ever and go outside. And this is where the mag boots come in. More on them very soon, but you step out into open space with Jupiter hanging behind the station, and you can walk on any surface you can reach. Floors, walls, the outside of the ring. The camera tilts with you so that up becomes relative. Sound is also heavily stripped back. You do not get cinematic pew pew pews in a vacuum. You get a kind of pressure cooker hush and the thumb of movement through your boots. That, paired with debris from firefights drifting through space along with bodies and flecks of blood, it feels very much in line with the show's cold approach to violence. And exploration seems to work exactly how you would expect from an Owlcat game that has now spun itself into third person. Thorough players get rewards with crafting materials, money, equipment. Some routes are gated behind skill checks, either your own or a companion's, which of course is that very familiar CRPG language of yes, you can go there if you brought the right companion or invested in the right stat. Tied to that, there is a nice little detail in the preview about spotting a sniper using some kind of scanner ability and countering him with an armor-piercing weapon that can punch through his cover, which hints at a bit more interplay between enemy abilities and your own toolkit than the usual shoot the red barrel design. The whole thing crescendos with a cutscene of the twins using their suit thrusters to correct for the station's drift, dodging debris and clawing their way to the ring where their ship is docked. Even here, there is choice. You can pick different approaches based on companion advice, which will affect the encounters you run into and how your crew react afterwards. Then the game sends you back into the station to face what you have actually caused. Corridors full of bodies, a Protogen soldier executing a captive in front of you, an armory picked nearly clean by people who tried to fight back. Larry reappears, bailing you out in the middle of a confrontation with a heavily armoured enemy, gently reminding you that you still owe his mum that mysterious present, which is absolutely not a cat at this point, right? From there, the preview jumps forward. Once you escape, Osiris Reborn opens up Ceres, Mars, Luna, and a wider branching story that is pitched at around 20 to 30 hours, running alongside Holden's arc rather than replacing it. Now, around the same time as Gamescom, Owlcat released a community thank you that also doubled as our first in-game look at several major locations that we've actually just mentioned. They framed it all together as an in-universe radio chat between your captain and their twin, set before heading to Eros. It's established as two mercs daydreaming about shore leave, and the related blog linked to this video opens with a quick reminder that yes, you can build your captain from scratch and your twin will mirror every choice, and more on customization and Private J is promised in a future update. With that laid out, the tour starts. Your captain opens with ground control to Private J. Sis, you daydreaming again? A small space oddity by David Bowie nod that may slip in so naturally that you may miss it yourself. However, it sets the tone perfectly. J fires back that you only need to shoot a few more unlucky bastards before you can claim a scrap of shore leave. From there, the destinations come up naturally of where they would like to go. Ganymede comes up first, the place everyone still calls the bread basket of the outer planets. Dome-grown greens, proper fresh food, the sort of thing you dream about after weeks of tube protein. Jay shoots it down immediately, partly as a joke about the Martian Marines who haunt the station and would happily pick a fight with their UNN counterparts, but also partly because Ganymede carries its own weight in the lore, particularly regarding the Ganymede incident. Ceres comes next, the belt's de facto capital and a permanent powder keg. Technically a major port, but practically it's a tug of war between Earth, the OPA, and whoever thinks they can claim it this week. Jay brushes it off with a weary, it's not the bars, it's just Luciana, which links back to the Europa trader from the Polygon preview. Then they land on Eros, almost casually, but anybody who knows the Expanse will feel the weight straight away, and as we kind of know ourselves now. However, Owlcat have kept it deliberately vague, and the community manager reinforced that on Reddit with a single unsettling image to reinforce their point, so take that as you will. There's also been a few clarifications made tucked into the community chatter. People asking if the blonde woman on the cover art so far was your twin. Owlcat confirmed that she isn't. She's a companion, and your sibling actually isn't on the key art cover. They also confirmed that romance options currently remain under wraps, which of course is only gonna fuel speculation until they decide to talk about it. And tucked away on Reddit is another location teaser, this time for Lovell City on Luna, described as the UN's true capital under artificial skies. A maze of tunnels and ambition beneath the dust. The kind of place where decisions ripple across the entire system. I'd say expect to make a few trips there, as well as major choices. Now, if the Polygon preview told us how Osiris Reborn plays, the latest dev diary explains why it feels the way it does. Owlcat has doubled down on physicality, and I don't mean that in a sleek, sexy sci-fi way, but more so in the awkward human reality of existing in a vacuum. And rather than winging it from online sources or second-hand research, they've brought in someone who actually knows what it is like to float outside an airlock with nothing but a suit between you and eternity. Former NASA astronaut and ISS commander Leroy Chiao. The video is essentially Leroy walking through the psychology of an EVA. The terror of detachment, the way silence becomes a warning rather than it being comfort, the fact that you can hear your own breath far louder than anything outside the suit. Owlcat sit next to him and explain how those details shape the game. Mag boots instead of tethers, so the player can move reactively without losing that sense of danger. Weapons that kick differently in 0G. Firefights where sound barely carries and the tension comes from vibration through the hull rather than showy off audio. It is grounded in science but not imprisoned by it. Realism softened just enough for the sake of playability. This is a video game after all, and I do want it to be fun. And there is a lovely aside about life on a ship too. Crews training for years, the commander setting the culture, the smallest routines turning a cramped tin can into something that resembles a home. Even taste changes. Astronauts crave spices because food feels muted in microgravity, and Owlcat have rolled that into Pinkwater's cooking and into the companion banter you're going to hear around the ship. It is that slightly nerdy, completely obsessive attention to texture that makes the whole thing feel far closer to the Expanse's ethos rather than a generic space opera feel, and I love that. And you see that same thinking across a few of the other community notes. On Reddit, Act Controller, the community manager, mentioned that they are exploring a helmet hidden option for moments where it would be survivable. A small quality of life tweak so we can see our protagonist in full customizable glory, but rooted in that same commitment to grounded fiction. And that also comes across in the tiny animation details, the armor straps shifting as you walk, the suit moving with weight rather than clinging like painted on fabric. And if you like this meticulous detail, Act Controller confirmed that more Dev Diary episodes are coming, so this is only the start of the behind the scenes look into more granular details like these. With that said, that is everything on Osiris Reborn so far. A decent read up on how it plays, why it feels the way it does, and how Owlcats are trying to build something grounded enough for Expanse fans, but wide enough for RPG players across the board. I will of course keep covering the updates as they land, so if there's anything extra specific you want me to dig into next, let me know. Hopefully we're going to see something soon at the Game Awards. And staying with Bowie for just a moment longer, let's hope the next thing Owlcat show feels less like floating around a tin can and more like actually touching down on one of these many planets. Until then, I've been Jackdaw. You're in the right place for the latest on a variety of sci-fi RPGs like The Expanse and Exodus, and a plethora of other fantasy RPGs. But until then, I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.